guys, we are here at second Agile Serbia conference, and here with me is Jurgen Appelo. How did you come to be doing what are you doing? You seem to be someone who really enjoys his work.
That's a good question. How do I come to enjoy my work? Well, I sort of fell into it, to be honest. I was a manager at a company in the Netherlands, a CIO, Chief Information Officer. That sounds really cool. It was a nice job, definitely. And there I had to learn what is the role of the manager in an organization that is becoming agile. Because we introduced Scrum, Agile practices, and some things worked, some things didn't, and I had to make sure that things worked better. And I enjoyed that role, but I also noticed that very few other people were writing about the role of the managers in an Agile context. They were just saying, okay, well, let the managers leave the self-organizing teams alone, and that they do things by themselves from now on. So I started writing about that, and that became my book, Management 3.0, and well, the rest, as they say, is history. I quit my job, started speaking, doing workshops, and there seemed to be, or there appeared to be, a lot of demand for this topic, because many organizations struggled with middle management, which is what I was focusing on. What should middle management do when you have self-organizing agile teams? Well, I think there's quite a lot of things that they can do.
When we talk about middle management, does success lead to happiness or vice versa? And where is that part about failing? How we can help our team members to be more confident in implementing Agile in their work?
Okay, so the first question is about success versus happiness. Well, most people agree, and to that I count the scientists and researchers, that it is happiness that leads to success. So if you have happy people who enjoy their job, they tend to make the organization more successful by being more productive, more innovative, etc., because they love their jobs. So they have an urge to do well. It is true that success also leads to happiness, but that is short-term happiness, basically. So it is a temporary rush of feeling good, but it ebbs away. And that is the problem, because then you need one success after the other to stay happy, and that is not a good cycle. So it's best to start with feeling happy as a person, and then the success comes after that. We hope, at least, a better chance. And your second question was about experiments, yes. Right? About
how we can help our team members to be more confident, right, in implementing Agile in their work.
Well, some people say that we have to reduce the size of failure. I had some big failures in my past, including a startup that didn't work, and all my savings were gone. That was a failure that was too big, actually. I should have had smaller feedback cycles to learn what works and what does not work. And Agile and Lean are all about reducing the size of the feedback cycle, so you learn faster with much smaller failures. So that is why we often call that safe to fail or fail fast. The earlier you know that something doesn't work, the better, because it's going to be cheaper, less painful for you. I also became a writer that way, because I started writing on my blog. So every blog post was for me a little experiment where I could see what worked and what didn't work. They were very safe experiments, and some articles became very popular and some didn't do anything. So I understood then what kind of things the readers wanted to read from me before I actually started writing and publishing my first book, which is also a very agile approach to writing a book.
And my next question is about that. Exactly 1 year ago, Management 3.0 was named as the front runner of the third wave of Agile. That's correct?
Correct, yeah.
Can you tell us Management 3.0 was what it is today, how it started and evolved?
Okay, well, it started with my book, where I simply explained this makes sense to me as a manager of an agile organization. I think these are some fun practices And that became a workshop, and that has been going on for 2 years, and I now have a company with 200 trainers licensed around the world who can and do organize these workshops. And I often summarize it as manage the system, not the people. So I find it important that managers take care of the environment of a team so that the team can then manage themselves and manage each other. I don't want to be involved in performance improvement of every individual person on the team. They should deal with performance improvement with each other, but then still this requires a container, an environment, a system for them to feel good, feel happy, enjoy the culture and be productive, and that is what the manager is for. I often use the metaphor of the gardener, which is a great metaphor for management, I think. You take care of the garden and the fence and that there's enough sunlight, but the growing, that has to be done by the plants themselves. You can't help them grow. It's just, that just needs to be sufficient nutrition in the soil.
What Agile and Management 3.0 brought to corporate culture, organizational culture?
Well, I think if you talk about Agile in general, then it is the main thing, I think, is shortening the feedback cycle so that you respond faster to changing environments, and that has purely a customer-focused principle. It is in the Agile Manifesto itself, customer collaboration over comprehensive documentation. So Agile is customer-focused for good reason, but the customer is not the only client of the system. Employees are also clients of the system, and they should feel happy and enjoy their work as well, because when they do, they take much better care of the customers. And that is where management comes in. So that is the contribution, I think, of Management 3.0, specifically when you're already trying to be agile as an organization, be more customer focused in shorter feedback cycles, then you also have to take care of your employees and your teams, that they feel good, that they're happy and engaged, etc. And there are good practices for that. My books are full of good practices that some of them I came up with myself, most of them I just collected from other sources, other companies who were doing good work, and I share them with some storytelling and nice pictures, and that is what Management 3.0 adds to Agile, basically, the employee focus that is sometimes missing.
What is the role of the manager in an organization that is doing Scrum? Because Scrum had a lot of suggestions, but no reference to a manager anywhere.
Correct. So Scrum makes some assumptions, including, for example, that there suddenly is a project that came out of nowhere. Where did that project come from? Where did those team members come from to do that project? This is not described in Scrum intentionally, because it tries to describe only that part where we do the project. So that is where management comes from. What is our business strategy? Which projects do we do and which projects do we not do? Which kind of employees do we want to have? How do we hire them? What is the onboarding process? How much do we pay those employees when they're doing Scrum? All of that is ignored by Scrum, but it has to be done by someone. Someone needs to do the hiring and the firing and compensation and making sure that there's an office and everything. So that is management responsibility, others as well, HR, etc. And intentionally Scrum does not describe that, because then it would become a huge number of books. And that's why I add my stuff basically with Management 3.0.
You mentioned today something about gamification, how we can implement gamification in Agile methodology.
Well, that is for people themselves to discover, but I do believe that we need more experience in getting people to actually change their behaviors, because a lot of the times people, including myself, but many others as well, have good ideas, good practices, but people are not adopting them. And the practices work for us and for other companies where we have experience, but then we offer them with books and with presentations and everything, including at this conference, and then people go home and they do nothing. They do not pick up the new behaviors. Well, that's where gamification and habit forming psychology basically comes in. So we as speakers know a lot about IT and Agile and software, but we know very little about human behavioral change. So there we have to learn from others who are much better at getting people to change their behaviors. This is about influencing them, about manipulating them in a good sense. And gamification is one popular approach, where basically you use ideas from games. People love playing games, and you apply them in a non-game context, such as product development, and you make things fun. So, for example, I heard of a team where every release had a movie title name, because it's fun. They came up with movie titles, Die Hard 5 and Batman vs Superman, and every release had a movie title name, because it is intrinsically motivating and it gives them more meaning to the work that they do. Or I heard just now of a team where the meetings took too long, so they made sure that every person who was talking had to carry a very heavy object. And you could only talk when you had the heavy object in your hand. So you make sure that you're not talking for too long, because your arms can't take it anymore. That's a great gamification trick, basically.
Sure.
Because you make the time that you can talk, you make that scarce, small, so that you increase the value basically of the time slot that you have available, that you can do the talking by using something that is heavy. Other teams have a talking stick, where only the person who has the talking stick can talk for no more than 1 minute or something. And yeah, these are all tricks. They're just simple tricks, fun tricks, and we need more of such tricks that we can borrow from games often to actually get people enthusiastic and motivated about changing their behaviors.
You were a TEDx speaker, so I suppose you like TED Talks. And my last question is, what's your favorite one?
Oh, my favorite one. Well, there are lots of great TED Talks, of course, but I think one of my favorite ones is I do not remember the name of the researcher. I think it was a Swedish guy who recently, sadly, passed away, who showed with all kinds of data and statistics how the world is changing. So you could see with little, big, small and big bubbles how Africa has increased in terms of economic prosperity, and how China has increased, and how that compares with the rest of the world. And that shows us also that visualization and this also a bit of gamification helps people to be more interested in what is happening around them, because he used very simple metaphors, very simple tricks to teach people basic concepts, like the number of people living in one part of the world versus the other part of the world. He used very simple gadgets and visual trickery that we would also use in games. So again, maybe an example of gamification in a non-game context. Yeah, that would be the one that I come up with.
Okay, thank you. That would be all.
Thank you too.